Hi Art One, Mrs. Price here. I'm going to take you through the steps of our tessellation project in case you're at home and you can't remember what we were supposed to do. So everybody should have a board all set up with their paper taped to a board. This is the board for Group B, and Group A had just a mat board right there. That's just to keep your paper nice and flat. We have a nice border created by our tape, which we measured out very carefully, and that will create a white border going around the outside. So the first thing we did, we made our tessellation piece and then went ahead and traced it right onto our paper. So in some spots it's going to go right off, and that's okay, you just stop drawing. For some of these pieces, depending on how well you line them up, you might end up with something like this where it doesn't quite match up. So what we're going to do is just make a line up that we think would work, and that's going to be okay. We're mostly just using these tessellation pieces to let us know when we're going to switch from positive space or negative space. So in the remote assignment that I gave you, I asked you to please find examples of positive and negative space, and then let me know which areas were positive and which areas were negative. So we're going to be creating our own piece that has positive and negative space, and we'll know where it happens based on which tessellation piece it's in. So the whole reason why I had you guys make the tessellation pieces is so that we have more interesting changes in the positive and negative space. I thought it would have been kind of boring if we just drew circles. That's what a lot of the examples were on the internet. But I thought, hey, why don't we make some tessellations? We watched a movie about MC Escher, so we're doing tessellations like he did. Now, we're not really filling them in like he did. We're doing kind of our own spin on that. And I know this is a really, really tiny little picture we're making, but I didn't want to send you guys home with anything too huge. So some of these lines you aren't going to need. So after you're all done tracing, you're going to have to figure out, well, which lines do I need to go ahead and erase? So like right there, that got a little bit weird. I can go ahead and fill that in. And I do not need this line right here. And if you have really tiny spaces, you may need to use your kneadable eraser. This one for me right now will work just fine. And I can erase my grid. I had my grid on there so I could easily line this up. So I'm just sort of making those meet, and you can do that too. I'm not going to go through with a ruler and say, oh my goodness, yours didn't match up at all. I mean, you want them to be kind of close though. Oh, it looks like I didn't do the top ones. So I got to fill those in. And some of those guidelines you actually do end up using, but some of them you might not. That's okay. So this should all fit together like a nice puzzle. That's why we wanted to be careful with our taping. Sorry if my hair is getting in the way. I have some Marv hair on my head today. Okay, so there's my tessellation. The next thing I'm going to do is write a B for black and a W for white. So the W is going to stand for our positive areas, and the black is going to stand for our negative space areas. So this is going to be kind of like a checkerboard, but with a checkerboard, everything lines up nice and neatly. This one, some of the shapes are going to overlap a little bit, and that's okay. So you just need very lightly so you can see it. So I'm going to start with black. That's black. This will be white, so they're going to alternate. Black. I'm writing very darkly on here. I would not make it that dark, but I want you to be able to see it in the video. So if that one's black, that means this one's white, black, white, black. And depending on what your design is, some of the black and the white might be really close to each other. Like this black might be really close to this black if you have a doop-de-doo up here. So it just depends on how this is going to look based on your tessellation shape. So that one, now this one was black, so you're probably thinking, oh, okay, well this one should be white. No, this one's also going to be black because we're also following this. So this one is black, and you'll know you're doing it right if you look and everything is alternating. So you should not have a black and a black touching. You should not have a white and a white touching. They should be alternating. And you might have to just take some care with this. So I almost wrote black there because I just wrote a W for white, but I gotta look at that and say, nope, that is going to be a white. So if you just slow down and really think about what you're doing, you should be fine. And if you mess it up, then all you do is double check it, erase, like if I accidentally made that a B, I just erase it and make it a W. Okay, so now I have all that mapped out. Next, you guys were drawing insects. So my insect was an ant, and I would like you guys to have at least 3 insects on your paper, and I would like you to have 3 different sizes. You only have to do 1 whole insect. So I'm going to show you one that I already started. Oh, stuck there. So right here is what I started, and I have, that's an insect head, or the ant head, that's his back end, and then that's my full insect. I know this one's really hard to see because I did not draw very darkly with my pencil. I wanted you guys to do some preliminary sketches of your insects just so you could get a feel for what that insect looks like. When you draw your insect on your tessellation paper, it really just needs to be an outline first, and then you're going to go ahead and add your details with your marker. If you feel uncomfortable about just adding the details with your marker, you can add the details with your pencil and then go over with your marker. I just kind of went for it and used my marker. You may also have to make up some things if my insect was pretty simple, so I had to make up a few details that I thought looked good. Okay, so there's my tessellation piece. So I need at least 3 insects. So on this one, you know what, I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to pretend I have a ladybug. So I'm going to do 1 partial ladybug, but I'm going to make it really big. It's going to be a really that is a really big ladybug. Okay, so there's a really big ladybug there. And the ladybug, I don't know, they kind of look like that. And then kind of like that. So that's my partial, there's 1. Here's my full, and you can decide where you want to map this out or think about it before you draw it on, because any place you have to erase, you're going to end up erasing your tessellation lines, and then you'll have to go in and redraw them. So don't throw that away. Hang on to that baby. You may need it, especially if you have a more confusing tessellation. You might need that to just confirm where the outline of the tessellation is. Okay, so here's my full. I'm going to do my full ladybug here. That was just a little one, and then maybe I will have another one. Now I'm going to put it right here. And that is going to be the back of the ladybug. The back of the ladybug. Okay, so I have a lot of lines going on here. This is going to get really confusing really fast. So what I need to do is figure out where I'm going to do my negative space areas first. Those are going to be the easiest. Anywhere my ladybug shows up in the B area, I'm going to make black. So I'm going to take my Sharpie and I'm going to look at my ladybug right here. And then I go ahead and gently fill this in. So when you're all done with this, you're going to erase your B's and your W's. So you want to make them very, very, very light. Of course, for my demo, I made them a little darker, so hopefully you can see them. I suppose if you're the kind of student that can keep this all organized in your head and you feel like you don't have to map this out, then you go for it. I personally have to have a little map or I start getting confused, especially if my bug is more complicated. This bug is not complicated, but my ant was more complicated and I had a lot of really tiny little areas, so it was helpful for me to have that map. Okay, so where else is it black? Right here it's black. And if I'm going to cover that over, I might not even have to erase that. So I'm not going to, well, I will finish coloring that in. This one's pretty little. So if your marker's starting to die on you, I would cap it up and make sure the tip is facing down like that and just let it kind of hang out for an hour or so and then go back to it and see if it has rejuvenated itself. Okay, so this is where things start to get confusing. So I have this line here, so this is like the top of the ladybug's head. This is where it's black. And this is where it's white. So, and I have a lot of lines here. So I'm looking at this and the black area is right there. So I go ahead, fill this all in. Now, if your marker is really, really bad, what you can do is you could just make lines to show its the negative space. If you wanted to go ahead and do this just so it wasn't a complete fill, that would be okay too. We're running a little low on the Sharpies. Okay, so I go ahead and fill all that in. So I'm going to pretend I filled that all in. So I don't have to worry about this area because that is not where my ladybug is. So my next job, so you see that little slice right here, that's where it's white. So now in the white areas, I'm going to figure out, well actually this one's black too, so that should have been black. You really have to look at these and think about it. And so I would go ahead and fill this one in. And we're just going to pretend I filled it in, so this isn't an 80-hour long movie. And next, I'm going to put in my details where I have positive space. So, where do I have positive space? Well, this is my positive space here, so I can actually, well, technically this is black too. So that should be black. See, it's a good idea. It really is a good idea to make yourself a little map. That helps alleviate confusion. Alright, there we go. So here is my positive space. And I'm going to go ahead, this was my negative space too, but I'm not going to finish filling that in. And this is where I could start adding my details. So I'm going to do some cross hatching right here. I might give some texture. Maybe there's like a highlight on here. Stippling is really easy with a marker, but you can tell ladybugs are not really that detailed, so I'm not going to have a whole lot on here. But if you have a more detailed bug, then you might have like little hairs or a texture of the exoskeleton. This one wasn't that interesting. I don't know where the ladybug's eyes are. I really don't know. But anyway, here's another one up here. Let me try this one. So let me do my black areas first. So that would be that. That. And actually right there. That's black too. It truly does get a little confusing when you have a lot of lines going on. That's why, if you weren't sure, you can take your tessellation piece and just double check it and say, oh, okay, yep, that's all supposed to be black. When you're using a marker, try to color all in the same direction. If you're doing like one of the scribble things, you're going to see all your lines. Okay, so here is my white area. I'll color that in black. So here's the white, and this is where I could add some of my details. With some hatching, some cross hatching, some stippling. These are the spots on the ladybug. That one is actually black too. So you just take it section by section, and you're going to know where you change from adding your value and details to where you're just filling it in as a black shape, depending on where that tessellation piece happens to be. So this one, I mean, I stop right there because that's where the end of my ladybug was. I guess, I don't know if they have that. So if I wanted to add this on here, could do that too. So if that's black, this is all going to be just black. Ladybugs honestly aren't very interesting. So maybe you want to do something a little more interesting. Okay, so there's your example. If anybody has any questions, definitely let me know, and I'll show you again. I worked a little harder on my ant one than I did on this ladybug one. All right, thanks.